Hi, everyone. I'm here with one of my good friends, Dr. Chris Turnbach, and he is one of the most successful functional medicine practices in the East Coast. He's right out of Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, and he's got an extensive amount of experience doing functional medicine. He's been doing functional medicine probably since it started over 20, 25 years or something like that. Knows everyone in the functional medicine community and teaches seminars, has a very successful practice, multiple practices. And then I really wanted to bring on someone who's really done it and who really knows how to integrate different practitioners in. And, you can get some of the strategies that Chris can share with us and how he kind of learned how to balance things out and how he runs his operations. And maybe you can share with us some of the pearls for all of us to learn about as we all struggle with balance and trying to optimize our practices. So Chris, thank you for joining us. And
Thanks so much for having me. Honor to be here. It's great. Great to see you again too.
So I did this little summary for you, but can you please do a decent one?
Sure. So, I kind of walk through a little bit slower. I started practice in 95. I went into functional medicine in 1997 when I first met Jeffrey Bland, and kind of grew from there. It's kind of generally evolved from there. And as my practice grew, we started bringing on more clinicians. And so the practice kind of mushroomed. And so it grew kind of organically, as I'd say. And now we have 13 to 15 providers working with us. It's really great because we have a great collaborative team, so we get to bounce ideas off each other. And it's just really nice to see how it's kind of grown organically and been able to work with other clinicians along the way.
So Chris, let me ask some questions. You're a DC like I am, and you first got out of school. Did you ever do conventional chiropractic first, or did you immediately go into nutrition?
No, I first did conventional chiropractic. So I got I graduated, and then a year later finished my neurology diplomate. So it kind of allowed me to branch out a little bit more from the traditional, just straight chiropractic into the functional neurology. And then I was a little frustrated because some of my patients weren't getting better as they were supposed to, in my opinion. So I did a lot of the work, and I thought, I don't know if it's a skill of mine or I'm missing something. I felt that I was missing something, and that's what led me to functional medicine. So it was really the frustration of my patients not getting better, which led me to that. But it led pretty quickly because I was pretty concerned about the patient's outcomes. And I noticed I wasn't getting the outcomes I wanted to in the first year and a half of my practice. So.
Okay. So how many years after you graduated school did it take for you to jump in the field of functional medicine? And in the beginning, when functional medicine started, it was very basic. So let's tell me about that transition in your career.
The interesting story is I had a patient come to see me. In my mind, he's famous to me. His name's Mark Urich, and he had ALS. And he said, I'm coming to you. And I was like, well, I'm a functional neurologist, and I'm going to be able to help you and fire pathways and facilitate, all we're not going to see the metabolic rate. And I used all the buzzwords in my head that I knew. And then he says, what can you tell me about things that are going to promote my mitochondrial health, like things like simply CoQ10? And I said, I can't tell you anything about CoQ10. I never heard of it before. And he looked me in the eyes and he said, Chris, do me a favor, learn or quit, because I don't need you. I need someone that's either going to learn or quit. So I said, wow. So I was like, what is this? What is this? So I found out, and 2 weeks later, Jeffrey Bland was lecturing in New York City, and I went up there, drove up and spent the day there. So he really facilitated me to say, you need to do a better job, because people that are really sick, they don't need people who think they know what they're doing. They need humble people that know they don't know what they're doing and are willing to learn. So that's really what jump-started me. And that was in 97, I met him. So he said, I'll never forget the words. He says, learn or quit, because I don't need you if you're not going to learn. And I was like, wow. And this is a guy whose whole life is on, he's like, this is my life. You're messing with my life. And if you don't know how to facilitate mitochondria, even at a remedial level, I need someone that's going to care more than that. So forced me to go on and move forward in functional medicine. And I didn't know just admit it. I had no idea. That was my first foray into it, to have a patient challenge me. So I was like, wow. And
let me push
a little bit.
I think you bring up a good point. And there's a couple of things I think a lot of practitioners that you've taught for many years, you've met practitioners all over the country like I have. And, the biggest thing that they tell us is, I don't feel comfortable enough doing anything yet. But in reality, like, patients just want you to try. They're okay with you not knowing everything. They already know you don't know everything.
And I say when I teach, and I may have stole it for you, I don't know, but I said, you don't have to be as good as me. Like, I don't have to be as good as Datis Karazian. I just have to be better than I was yesterday. I just have to continue to grow, right? I tell when I teach, I say, you don't compare yourself to the people you hold in the highest esteem only. Just compare yourself to who you were yesterday. Are you getting better? Are you learning more? Just be a better clinician than you were yesterday. And you'll wake up one day and realize, I mean, if we had to practice the way we did 5 years ago, both of us, we'd probably quit because we're continuously learning. So I tell a new patient every time, I said, I promise you one thing, to be a patient in my office and to see me, you have to accept one thing. And I promise you this, I'm going to make a mistake. I'm probably going to make a mistake in this case. I'll try to be quick to figure it out. I'll try to be quick to correct it. But if you think I'm going to figure this out perfectly every single time without making a small error, that's naive. So we've kind of put that ego aside and that arrogance aside and say, I don't know everything, but I'm just going to try to keep learning. And it's just like you said, you can't learn that. You can't wait to jump in this field until you have it all figured out. It's a trial by fire. Even the new clinicians we hire, they shadow me for 3 months before we let them free. And they still feel like, they don't know what they're doing. I'm like, and neither do I. We all have to figure this out as we go.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's one of the most important things I think you just mentioned was establishing that relationship with your patient where you take all the pressure off and you go in there and say, listen, I'm putting my cards on. I'm going to work hard on this case. I don't know everything. I don't expect me to, but I will work hard and I will try to look at angles. And I think that conversation is healthy for both people. Like if you work with chronic patients all the time, like we both do, if you don't establish that, it's also easy to burn out related to just being bored, like, because it's too much pressure. I mean, you want to do the best you can. You can be honest with them. Now you had a very shocking opinion because someone you admired and someone who was really has no room for any error and tolerance basically told you, do it or quit.
Right. It's fine. And he didn't say you have to know how to fix me. He said you have to try. It's like you said, you don't have to be perfect. You have to try. You have to care.
So that one conversation changed your whole trajectory of your whole practice.
I call it a pivot point. It pivoted me like this. There's a huge pivot point. Yeah.
So it tells you this, you're kind of in a state of shock. You probably resonates with you. Like, this is real. This is true. In your core, he's right. So you find the seminar, Jeffrey Bland, and you go out to New York, you hear him speak, and then what happens?
I was blown away. So anybody who's heard Jeffrey Bland speak, you kind of have to have all ears on. You can't sit back and catch a third of what he says. So I was sitting there. I was just very in tune to what he was saying, but I don't know that I was taking notes. I was just like listening because there's no way I could take it all in, but I knew there was so much more that I had to know. I knew that woke me up and said, wow, you think you know everything. And I was having a conversation this morning. I said, I was never so confident and arrogant and smart as the first day I got in practice because I knew it all. And then suddenly all my barriers were broken down. I'm like, I really don't know what I'm talking about. And meeting him and listening to that, I was like, there's so much, it's so much more than I thought it was going to be. The complexity was so big and you just have to dive in and get your hands dirty. And so that woke me up to say, there's more that I can be doing for my patients. And I went into the field to help people. I think most of us went into this field to help people. And so we feel this responsibility that what am I missing? It's not what do I know, but what am I missing? And I realized at that moment, there's a lot I'm missing.
Right.
There's a lot I'm missing.
So you went to the seminar, you got blown away and you're like, okay, at that time, was this called functional medicine when you were there or not?
I think it was early on in the functional medicine terminology. Yeah, really early functional medicine. There was a lot of people there and big conference in New York City. And I realized that there was kind of two groups of people there to allude to what you said. People who had it all figured out. Right? There was people like, oh, I've been doing this. I know what I'm doing. And then the rest of us, which was the majority, that said, I kind of know a little, but I don't have it all figured out. And you realize that those are the ones that helped you learn and you could let your ego down and say, could you help me with this? And realizing that there's an intimidation factor when you go into one of those seminars and you're afraid to talk to people that you think have it all figured out because you're the fledgling, you're the new person. And I don't know if I can even ask them, what is anemia? I've never heard of that. Or, I don't know what that means, or I never heard of vitamin D. I'm picking on some basic things and we shouldn't be intimidated because we all started somewhere of ignorance. We all started from ignorance. And so it was great to feel comforted in those people that said, I don't have any I don't know what's going on either, but let's figure this out together. And that's kind of the community that was built of, hey, let's work on this together and realize that we all started from a position of ignorance and we all have to move forward together. Yeah. So it allowed me to then call some people and say, I don't know what to do. I don't even know how to order a blood test. I never heard of a lab before. And so instead of, oh, what's the matter with you? You should know all these things. Communicating with people that said, hey, let's just start with the basics. I didn't know that one time too.
So then you came back, and what happened?
So I came back. I was actually with another outfit. I was working for an outfit around here, and they had a multidisciplinary practice in a different way. They did more physical medicine. So there was an MD there, but he was just doing physical medicine. And so this was a new branch of thought process to me. So a year and a half later, I had to leave that practice and started my own practice. So January 1st of 1999, I opened my own practice. It was scary as hell because I had a baby coming on the way. I didn't have a large following. I didn't have a large bank account. And I went in and I said, but I know that I need to do this the right way. So I started really small with a few things in my arsenal and my hands, because I'm still doing chiropractic care and adjusting. But then I was kind of facilitating the functional med piece and learning as I went with just some simple things like vitamin D and omega-3 fatty acids, just some simple things. But seeing how it was changing my patients and slowly learning, hey, I'm going to run some labs. I'm going to run labs that are pretty common, but I don't really even know what they all mean yet, but I'm going to try and figure it out as I go. Developed a relationship with the local lab, just Quest at the time, Quest Diagnostics. They kind of helped me through even how to order a lab. And so I'm running these labs. I'm looking at some basic things like, looking back, some really basic thyroid numbers, some really basic CBC numbers, some really basic metabolic panel numbers, and not much more, just starting with some real basic things. And then not knowing what I was doing, trying to integrate with the local primary care providers, like, hey, I'm seeing these numbers. I'm not even sure what they mean, but they probably mean something, and the patients aren't getting better. And then through that, kind of refine my skills to say, what can I handle? What piece of this physiology can I handle? And growing over the next 25 years into what can I handle? And the confidence grows as to what I can handle now, or I'm not sure what to do, but I'm going to at least take a bite out of the apple.
Right.
So it started really slowly, and I had a really small office. I happily say my first year in practice, I made $1,057. That's my claim to fame. I still have it. My tax return, $1,057 in my first year in practice. And, so it was painful. It was a painful bump to go through and try to figure out and learn how to do it all. And it's just the process of how to even run a business. How do I be a father at the same time, and how do I run a business and be a husband and try to learn all these things? And you still feel so uncomfortable because a fair amount of the time you feel like you're drowning or treading water barely because you're not sure what you're even doing. And so,
right.
Go ahead.
Let me jump into some of the things, because you have so many gems here. I don't want to go too far, and I want to capitalize on it, because I think it's really important for some people to focus on the things you said. One of them was, you got a lab test back one by one. You learn how to read it, right? And that's one of the key things that I think it's for all people that learn functional medicine. Like, if your test patient's results come in, you still have time to figure out what's happening with it. If it's a biomarker you don't know, it's not like your patient's results come in and then they knock on your door and go, explain it to me right now. So I think it's important. You put out really something that I think really people should really reflect on too, is that, you learn case by case, lab report by lab report. So the whole process of going through each lab report, you were becoming a better clinician. And the fact that you were putting yourself in a position going, I know this is important, I'm going to run it. I may not know what it means, but when it comes back, I'm going to figure out how I can fit into it, is really the mindset of a clinician that's going to absolutely grow. So you already had set yourself up with, I'm okay not knowing everything, which then puts you in a position to really grow as a clinician. And then I'm going to learn one by one, and the ego was out of it, and you were honest with your patient. And then in each case, you grew and grew. And at this point, you're seeing really complex cases. But what kind of advice would you give to someone with going through this experience? Because I think it's really important for them when they do feel intimidated. They don't even want to order the first test, and then the results come in, they're not sure what to do. I mean, to me, that's the normal process of growth, right? Would you?
Right. So it's funny. My wife says, who's, one of my heroes, she says, get out of your comfort zone. If you're not out of your comfort zone, you're not growing. So, real quick aside, she graduated college. She decided to teach English in Thailand because she wanted to get out of her comfort zone. I'm like, well, that's a little too far out of my comfort zone. I wasn't willing to do that. So don't stick with what is inside your comfort zone. Expand a little bit every day and grow a little bit every day. And if not ordering blood work if ordering blood work's out of your comfort zone, do it. But order some simple stuff and learn it. And like you said, you don't have to know it all because you get the report ahead of time. You can look stuff up. It's no different than if you're seeing something strange on an MRI and you get an MRI report back in some Latin term, you don't even know what it means. You can look it up and understand what's going on. You can do that with these blood tests too. And I think it's important to know that there are people like yourself that you can turn to. You can go to places to get this type of an education. There are seminars out there where people can go and learn this stuff, and don't think you have to figure it out by yourself. I think it's wonderful that we can create a community where people can ask questions. A lot of the companies, such as Apex, you can call the clinical support line. You're not an island. Those of us who did it as an island would probably counsel those people, don't be an island. Lean on people and resources that are out there, and don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to take a step. If you're not trying to get someone better, they're not going to get better. You have to try. It's better to try to get someone better, make a move forward. So that's how I viewed it. As you got to put your ego aside. I know in being a doctor, everybody has an ego, but you have to put it aside and realize you don't know some of these things. So that's the only way you're going to grow.
Yeah. Putting yourself in an uncomfortable position is probably one of the best things you have to remember if you want to grow as a clinician, right? Or grow your practice for everything. Like if you feel like you're comfortable, there's no way you can grow, whether it's expanding your practice or expanding your clinical skills. And I think that has been the difference I've seen over the years with people that become amazing clinicians versus those that are just stagnant. They're just constantly too afraid to do a test, keep wanting to take, I had a person like taking a seminar 15 times and never actually, it's like stepped into ordering a lab test once and I'm going, what are you doing? Like, this must be a fun thing for you because it's no longer clinical for you because you got to jump in. It's just like, the analogy I used to make was like, throw yourself in the fire, smell yourself burn, or jump in the ring. You can't just you can't just shadow backs all the time. There's a point you have to like throw yourself in
the ring. Yeah.
And until you actually order the lab test in the patient and go through the steps involved, you're not in the ring. You're just basically shadow boxing. And now you can take all the seminars you want in the world, but you got to then implement and then figure it out. And the other good thing I think is just having a community, because the thing is that this is the whole point of what we're trying to do at the project, is just develop a community where people can all share with each other. And the growth is happening with people much faster when they have people to talk to and have people to interact with. In the past, we used to have to go to a conference. In between conferences, we have our little conversations, and that's where we really grew. But in reality, now that we can have interactions like this with the technology, it's really helped. So let me kind of continue your timeline. So you had this patient that had a dramatic impact on the trajectory of your life. You then went to the first center, happened to be a functional medicine seminar, shook you up. You then started to start your practice, just believing in yourself. You started to just put yourself in an uncomfortable position, learning how to treat and manage one patient at a time. You had this honest discussion with your patient, put yourself and your patient in a healthy relationship, working through a chronic case. And from there, tell us where you started to feel comfortable with functional medicine, and not that you ever do. I know both of us, we're always not insecure, but I would say we always have a level of doubt of what we know, just because how complex patients could be. I mean, I think we're confident in our effort abilities that we're going to try, but there's always some uneasiness. So now you've been in practice you've been doing functional medicine for over 20 something years now, and where did things start to change for you from being really worried? What was your next transition?
So I opened in 99. I started to do more and more functional medicine. So I started to incorporate it with my chiropractic care more and more until I was about 50-50 functional medicine, 50% chiropractic, 50% functional medicine through the day went on. 2003, my wife gets Lyme disease and she loses function basically from the neck down. So I don't want to say she was in a wheelchair, but she couldn't move her arms and legs very well at all. well. She's kind of like in the Lyme community, they still remember her as kind of a bad case. So she gets neurologic Lyme. Nobody knows what it is. We kind of figured out. At the time, I asked her primary care doc to run a Lyme panel. And he says, Lyme doesn't present like this. I ordered her an MRI of her brain. And so the radiologist who I knew, because I ordered a lot of MRIs at the time, says, what are you looking for? I said, I'm looking for MS because she had a rapid onset of loss of symptoms. And I said, but I found out earlier today it was Lyme disease. So it's Lyme disease. And actually, it's funny. He says, oh, Lyme disease, the great MS mimicker. So he knew in 2003 as a radiologist that MS mimics Lyme disease, but we're still controversial about it today. So I was like, I kind of, every day you think you're a good clinician until you get hit with something like that. You're like, I don't know anything. And so I called Joe Brascano. I called some people who were big in the Lyme community. I called the head of some labs, and we miraculously, she gets better. And I said, this is probably as a consequence of all the people that I leaned on that could help me, as well as the knowledge I brought from all the nutritional pieces that I could to support it. And that hits home. You're like, okay, now I really need to know what I'm doing. So I start stepping up my game functional medicine wise, because whatever I can do, I can support people that aren't in my office, that are, 2 hours away or 10 hours away, because they can still support their physiology. And then it all takes a turn for me in 2008. So that's growing. 2008, I'm in a bicycle accident. And I'm in a bicycle accident, which caused me 7 surgeries, broke both my wrists, my elbow, my collarbone, and I couldn't adjust for 2 years. I could not adjust a single patient for 2 years. And I was very blessed and very fortunate because I had the functional medicine piece of my practice. That's all I could do. I couldn't write with my right hand for 6 months, so I had to become left-handed and write with my left hand for 6 months. And so that forced me to lean so heavily on functional medicine. I'm so grateful that I had that there because I couldn't use my hands to adjust. So I'd go in the office and I just do functional medicine, and it kind of sharpened my saw a little bit. And I got more and more involved with the functional medicine based on that piece. And then I realized, you know what? I could have done this had somebody pushed me, or I had a little bit better support group, or I can make a lot of excuses. I was afraid to do just functional medicine. I was just fearful of it. I don't know why. I was just afraid to take that next step. So based on my circumstances, I was kind of forced to take the next step. And that's all I did. And I know the surrounding chiropractic community, because I was always supportive of them too, they stepped up and helped. But they all said, it's amazing that you can do this functional medicine. And then they started saying, can you teach us a little bit about what you're doing? So I was able to give back to the community. I know so many of them said, I didn't even know we could order a blood test. So at that point, I became kind of a small community leader for functional medicine, if you will, because people said, hey, what can I do? How can I help my patients? And it's amazing that you broke both your hands and your elbow and your collarbone and still stayed in practice and survived. So that really forced me even to just go full-blown functional medicine.
Okay. Let me highlight a couple of things that I think was so important for all of us to digest. One of them was your rapid growth took place when your wife got Lyme disease and really went through that experience. And that really forced you in that position of becoming an expert. And then, but that position of being uncomfortable and having to deal with all this, now raise your skills to interpret, evaluate, work with the patient suffering from Lyme disease than ever before, right? And then that skill you kept. So it's like one of the things, like when these events happen in your practice and you're willing to take on the challenge. Now you were forced to take on the challenge because it was your wife.
Right.
It's Heather. Like she had to take care.
Most important person in your world is like, one person, I might lose it.
Yeah. So then that immediately stepped you up to the next level, and then your injury put you up to the next level. So the world was, the force of the world was pushing you towards this.
It's like I was led that way, and as you know, I have a child with Fragile X, special needs child, and so that forces you to learn more. And we had him to Kennedy Krieger, and they said, we've never seen a child with Fragile X function this highly, but it's nothing you're doing. I'm like, okay, well, I can get past the sarcasm that they put out there, but I knew that all of the tools that were in my toolbox helped me help him, and then also motivated me to become a better clinician because of him. So every step of the way, so you don't forget what you learned yesterday, and you just have these events in your life that force you to learn more and more and more. If a patient in front of you isn't enough, your son will be, I promise you. So, keep pushing it.
So Chris, about, let's say, was it 10, 11 years from when you started practice, you just became pretty much full functional medicine after your injury?
So exactly 9 years almost to the day, 9 years after I opened my practice, it was full functional medicine.
And are you full functional medicine now?
I am full functional medicine. What I'll do is I probably have 10 adjustments a week, 10, 15 maybe, because they're patients that have had forever that just want an adjustment, those that just want you to adjust them. But so now I'm full functional medicine. And I guess we have all these clinicians, and I still have my next new patient availability is still in January. So I still have a very large wait list.
I remember when we first met, you were showing me some lab results, and you've always had the craziest patient results I've ever seen. Like none of the panels you see make sense. And I remember going thinking, is the lab you're using accurate? And it was LabCorp, and I'm like, okay, well they're pretty reliable, so it's not that. And I remember going, okay, you're different with the community, and you have an Amish community as well. So you definitely have a patient population where you live dealing with conditions like Lyme disease. You have the Amish community, which doesn't do drugs, and you kind of manage to help them with all their medical issues, right?
Right.
And you have this level of a patient population that has allowed you to become really specialist and expert in chronic conditions that, let's say, the average person may not have, or let's say it's very unique. So tell us about your patient population a little bit.
Well, to piggyback what you said, we don't limit what we do. A lot of practices that do functional medicine, they might do diabetes, they might do thyroid, they might do whatever. They might pigeonhole themselves into that. I like the self-described conditions. We take care of I don't feel gooditis. So people that just don't feel good. It's not really a diagnosis code. So one of the things I tell all my clinicians is don't have a confirmation bias. So if a person walks in the office, go in with an open slate. Don't assume this is a Lyme case or a mold case or this case or that case. Go in with an open mind and don't have that confirmation bias. Keep an open slate and work them up clinically from the ground floor every time. That'll sharpen your skills. That'll rule things out. That'll keep you humble. If you go in saying, I really don't know what this is, and start from the history, then the relationship you dealt with the patient, then the exam, figure out what's going on with them, internally, and then run your labs. So we see all kinds of chronic illnesses. And I know a lot of people in our field do. We tracked it one year. The average patient came in after seeing 13 other physicians, which is kind of like what everybody does in our field, right? But they come to us because if they could go next door for a $5 copay, they wouldn't be in our office. So right. They come in more complex. And we do. We're the largest draw center in the state of Pennsylvania that's not a hospital. So we do a lot of lab work here. Now we have a lot of clinicians, and the benefit is I get the benefit of seeing all of their labs. So I see tons and tons and tons of goofy lab work every day and try and make heads or tails of it. I don't always have it figured out. But to your point, we see patients without a preconceived notion. So we have to be clinicians from the ground floor up every time a new patient walks in. Young, old, everything.
So walk us through from the timeline. You discover functional medicine. You make $1,500 your first year of practice on your own. you then get forced. Nature and the world forces you into baked in functional medicine all the time from your injury and everything. And then you have 3 clinics now. You have lots of people working in your centers and clinics. It's probably one of the largest functional medicine, I would say, clinics in the East Coast, right? It's
the largest one I know of. Yeah.
Yeah. So, tell us that part of it. Where did you go? Okay, I need to add another person into my room and bring in associates, and then that first part with your first practice, and then get us through that. And then what I want you to let us know is once you finish your first practice, and that was solid. When did you decide to go, I'm going to add another location here and another location here? Because now you have 3. I mean, not many people. Not many clinicians can do that. So what was the process, and what were you thinking, and what happened?
Well, the process really was this. I try to keep a patient-centered focus. So I was getting busier because I was only doing functional medicine. You get a reputation. I started doing some lecturing. So I got busier and busier and busier. So I knew I needed to get out of my little office, and a bigger office became available. Actually, I bought this office from the hospital. And they jokingly said, it's only you. We'll buy it back from you in a year when you can't fill it. They kind of said, we'll buy this back from you. So, okay. So at the time, I had 4 kids. All my kids had their own offices because it was a 6,000 square foot building and just me. And so all my kids came in and they had a pretend office in the building. But the reason I came here is at the time I had a 2-year waiting list to get into my practice. And I said, I need to expand because that's not a badge of honor. That's a disservice to patients. If they're waiting 2 years, that means they're suffering for 2 years. There certainly has to be a better answer. So from that point on, we said we need to bring somebody in and train them and work with them and collaborate with them to come in the office to offload some of these patients. And so we brought in at the time, she went through IFM. She was IFM certified, but it was a pediatrician from the hospital. She wanted to join our practice. She joined our practice, but inside of 3 months, she was full. So then we brought in another chiropractor, Dr. Rao. He came in, and in 3 months, he was full. So it basically was just the offloading of patients filled their schedules pretty quickly. And so we kept growing. And then we had people coming to shadow all the time, like a lot of functional medicine docs do. They would come and shadow and they'd want to join the practice. And there was always, fortunately for us, there was always enough patients. We have a pretty steady flow of patients calling all the time. So it kind of grew organically. And then when you add another clinician, you have to have support staff for them. So we just have been fortunate to have enough patients. And every time I teach, they say, what's your practice management? I said, I never really did practice management. I just cared about my patients, and I let that speak for themselves. I said, the best thing you can do is just care about your patients, be honest with them, be humble with them, tell them you don't have it all figured out, but say, I don't know how to figure this out, but I know my job is to figure it out. And I'm going to walk every step of the way through this with you, right next to you. I tell them if times are hard, I'll carry you, I'll throw them my back. And I also tell them you can fire me at any time, but I'm never going to fire you as a patient, right? So you may not be compliant with me, but I'm not going to fire you, but you can fire me and I'm going to walk with you. And with that, the next thing you know, that's the kind of healthcare provider they want in their life. And that's the one they want for their friends and their other people suffering. So that's how we get the referrals. So that's how we had clinicians join the practice and then grow from there.
Let's highlight a few things. I think you said something really profound there. You said to your patient that you can't fire them, but they can fire you. Mm-hmm. It immediately sets a level of trust for them to be able to work with you, right? And I know you pretty well, and you come off as a very caring. Because you are. I mean, you're genuinely caring and motivated to help people. There's no sales pitch. There's no nothing. It's just like, hey, this is what we're doing, and this is really what people need. I mean, I think that's what sometimes people focus on. They need a practice management center, and maybe from basic bookkeeping skills and making sure you actually schedule some basic stuff and have an accountant or something. But outside of that, it really, the key factor is the person, the clinician, the director. That's going to make everything happen. Now, you took a big leap, which is, getting a 6,000 square foot building.
Yeah.
This is where sometimes I've seen practitioners like not make it. They take the big leap and it doesn't work because they're hoping for something and it doesn't happen. But you took the big leap, you were successful, and then step by step you started to add people to your team because they were getting busier and busier and busier. And you kind of grew with it. So you let your patient population determine where you were going to go and kind of grow with them there. And
I didn't. The building was available. I didn't have this. I want to be. It was never about me. Like I want to have a big office. I want to have 3 offices. That wasn't my goal. My goal was like, well, I needed more space than I had, and I probably knew I needed an associate at some point. Yeah. This building became available, but like you said, it grew organically. It wasn't a design plan to how big can I get, how much can we bring in. It was like, well, there's a need, so let's fill the need. Or there's a need, let's fill the need.
Right. So right now you have 3 practices. How did you go from the first location to the second to the third? And how far away from each other are they?
It's kind of a selfless story. Not that I'm always selfless. I'm not, but there's a selfless story. A lot of my Amish patients would come to see me. It's about an hour and 10 minutes, and they'd have to get a driver. So they don't drive. So they needed a car. So they'd have to hire a driver. So it was $120 just for them to have a driver to come see me. And I went and I did a lecture for them. They have this event called Family Days on the Farm. So it's 4,000 Amish. And they asked me to speak one year. And the keynote speaker was speaking on nutrition as it relates to cancer. And he got sick and couldn't come. So they asked me to be the keynote speaker. So I was the keynote speaker, plus I did another lecture there. 4,000 Amish. And they said, how can we get you here in our community? And I said at the time, I can work in a closet. Like I can work I don't need a big fancy clinic. And so they had a 10,000 square foot health food store, and they built me an office in their basement. And they put me in their basement of their office. I was like, all right, I guess I made the statement I could work in a closet. I literally worked in a closet. And so that got busy. We had some associates who joined our practice who actually wanted to be in Lancaster. And I said, we should really make the move to open a bigger office in Lancaster. So we opened a full office in Lancaster with 5 clinicians there and support staff there, which was nice. We do blood draws in the center. The patients don't have to travel. And then that community grew more and more and more. And they wanted me to open another clinic in the heart of Amish community. So I was in Lancaster, which is a big, fairly decent sized county. In north of Lancaster, there's some Amish, but south of Lancaster, there's more Amish. So then that led to recently opening. We just opened the other clinic. We opened the Lancaster clinic a couple years ago, but then the Amish clinic, strictly Amish clinic, we opened probably about a year and a half ago.
And you have a multidisciplinary practice, right? What are the different specialties in your practice?
So we have a pediatric oncologist. We have a nephrologist. They both practice functional medicine, though, so they don't practice that field, but they bring with them, just like we said earlier, they didn't forget their pediatric oncology. They didn't forget their nephrology. They just practice functional medicine now. Have internal medicine doctor, 2 naturopaths, 4 chiropractors, and 3 nurse practitioners, and 3 RNs.
Wow. And how many total?
And an acupuncturist. I forgot about the acupuncturist.
Wow, that's a lot of people. How many total staff people do you have between?
50 staff.
So you have 50 staff.
Yeah.
And how many clinicians? Is that like 10, 11?
I think total is I think it's 13 to 15 clinicians that change.
You can't even remember if it's 13.
Yeah.
13 to 15.
We do internal clinical roundtables, but not everybody can make it. So we always plan for 13.
And if you think about like the amount of people you're helping out, how many patients does those 3 centers see, let's say in a year?
So we just hired a full-time CFO who's helping us put numbers together, because we needed a CFO just to tell us what we're like. We need to manage this growth, and we need to know what we're doing and put hard numbers. And are we doing patient satisfaction? Are we doing the right thing? Just because you're busy doesn't mean you're good, right? So you want to make sure the patient outcomes are what they're supposed to be. So right now we're seeing about 240 new patients a month. So we get 240 new patients a month through our center. And we're all pretty busy. So somewhere north of 10,000 patients we've seen, at least I've seen, and my center. So that's not all me, but since we started, those are real numbers. I mean, those are real numbers. And we typically, now I don't see patients terribly frequently. So I'll see them the first visit, and then I'll do a full intake, a full exam, and I'll run their labs, and I'll see them 3 weeks after that. And then I'll go over their labs. I'll put a care plan together. We have a lifestyle coach, which helps them with diet and follows up with them supplements. I have a full-time clinical assistant who checks in with them, makes sure they're doing okay. But I won't see them for 3 months. So after I see them after that second visit and put a plan together, I don't see them again for 3 months.
Right.
So they're out there. So it's not like the visits we're seeing are the same patient every week.
Well, I mean, 240 patients a week. Let's just say
a month.
Oh, 240 patients a month. So that's
new patients. Yeah.
New patients. So it's about 3,000, somewhere around 3,000 new patients a year. That's a lot.
It's a lot.
That's a lot. I mean, that's even, I don't know if the Cleveland Clinic Functional Medicine Center is seeing those numbers, and this is private. Yeah. Amazing.
It's a lot. And it's, I love it. I, as you know, I love being a clinician, but I also love troubleshooting. So I love the fact that I have other people bringing me problems. I call myself in the office the escalation clause. So whenever the other clinicians kind of get stuck, they bring it to me. Not that I'm any better, I just like the challenge. So they bring it to me, and I love seeing those really challenging cases that even in our own clinic are difficult.
So, you know, when you're looking at what part of your time are you spending to run your practice into business, and how are you balancing that out? You know, and I don't think, you know, what you're taking on is so unique in the field, because I don't know, personally, I've been in functional medicine my whole career. I don't know anyone that has that degree of new patients coming into those centers. So it probably is the largest one. And I also want to add for people listening, I know you're not doing a cookie cutter approach with everyone. Everyone that's coming in is getting an individualized, personalized approach. So it's not just like everyone starts with a gut, and everyone gets this protocol start with. They're all getting very thorough, very good workups. So how are you balancing business and time and practice? And
that's a great question. And I don't know that I'm doing it better than I was yesterday, but I don't know that I have it mastered yet. So yeah, to your point, in our office here, protocol is a 4-letter word. We like you said, everybody's individualized. Everybody gets a unique set of labs. Everybody gets a unique protocol, or approach. So what I try to do now is Mondays and Fridays, I try not to see patients, which usually turns into one Monday and one Friday a month I am seeing patients. But those are the days that I try not to see patients, and I try to stay on top of it. And I have an amazing support. So my wife runs the practice, Heather, who's probably the smartest person I know. So she runs the whole practice. And we have, again, a lot of support staff. So it doesn't come without a little bit of labor intensity. We have nurses who are support staff. They do IVs too, but they're also support staff. I have a full-time clinical assistant who is my right arm, who follows, all the portal messages, and she keeps on top of me, so I'm not missing things, so people don't fall through the gaps. Again, we just hired a CFO who's helping us with the numbers. So a lot of it is managed because I'm willing to let a lot of it go. And so when people say, what about this? What about that? I said, that's not even a decision I get to make. It's a decision that my CFO makes or my wife makes. Those are decisions that I'm willing to delegate to other people. And that's been helpful for me. Now, days in the office, when I'm in the office seeing patients, I just call it a wash. So Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, I come in at 7:30, I leave at 9 o'clock. I come in at 7:30 in the morning, I leave at 9 o'clock at night. So those are days I'm just here. So I have not figured out that balance yet. I do know that by taking the Mondays and the Fridays to do meetings or paperwork or something like this also fills my cup. It keeps me energized. It also allows me to maintain a sense of sanity, be home for my kids. It allows me to be around the weekends. It also allows me to take a 3 or 4 day trip if I need to and get away with my family. So the balance is something that I'm still trying to figure out. There was a time when I thought pushing harder was better, and it was a compromise to me. It was a compromise to me and my family, and I think that I needed to learn that, fall on my face a little bit.
So how long did it take for you to learn that it's okay to just practice, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and then Monday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, have the option to take a break if you need to, or catch up with your office stuff? Because what I've seen, that takes people a long time before they come to that realization. They feel like, oh, I have to be there every day and I have to do things every day. Like how long into your practice did you figure that out?
So the Friday thing was kind of early. But I say kind of early. So if I opened in 1999, kind of early for me was probably 2009. So 10 years into practice, it's kind of early. Like, I guess I'm getting older, but it's tough because, we don't see patients. We're not collecting income. That's kind of how we work. But I will tell you what I have done with my clinicians when they come. I said, do not do what I did yesterday. Like, don't work all day, every day and sacrifice your life. So most of my clinicians do not work on Friday. Nobody's allowed to work Fridays past noon to see patients. So you can't be that hungry, right? So you have to give yourself time because you'll burn out. And you're no good to anybody if you're not around in 5 years. So you can't burn out. So we limit their hours. I'm the first one here and the last one to leave. That's a problem, but I won't let them do that. So they're done at a certain hour. They got to go home. Make sure you're having time with your family. We really promote that. So I allow myself to I don't know, maybe be the martyr so that they don't do it. Like, you can't do these things. And it's so important because if I went back in time, it's an extra hour in the office. Somebody told me a long time ago, they never put on their tombstone, I wish I spent another day in the office. So and I didn't learn that for a long enough period of time that it caused some pain in my life. And I needed to realize, wow, this is important to me. So now I'm there.
And I would also point out, I know Heather, your wife, incredible person, very bright, very intelligent, and she's kind of in this with you. So as a family, it's like she can see what's happening, what needs to be organized, and you can, as she runs parts of it, you can see her stress and she can see your stress, and that, I think that's really important to maintain a healthy relationship. Sometimes when doctors stuck at work all day and their spouse doesn't understand what's happening, it can be difficult. But how of your schedule now, like how often do you just take 4 days and go, I need a break, and just like disengage and recharge yourself?
My brother gives me a hard time. I probably take 6 to 10 full vacations a year. So
Okay.
I make sure that I'm going away. And I make sure Heather, my wife, takes more. She just had a weekend away with friends at the shore for 3 or 4 days. It's just so important to unplug and pull away. So
Right.
I'm not afraid to work hard and play hard.
Right. So, when I listen to you and hear what you're doing, it's very clear that you have a set of skills that most people don't have. So you have a set of skills of knowing where to push your staff, where to push your associates, people working in your office, not letting them, like, let's say, work on a certain time past Friday, making sure people are taking breaks when they need to and often enough to recharge. And that's like a special skill. So for people that are kind of stuck in the rut, because first of all, a lot of practitioners get burnt out. So if someone came up to you and said, hey, I'm burnt out, I feel like I'm working all the time, what would you say to them?
You don't have to climb the hill today. You don't have to climb the hill today. I mean, if you want to practice 2 days a week, it's going to be okay. Someone told me a long time ago, the sun's coming up tomorrow. Either way, I'll tell you something. You may not remember this, Tatis, but you said it to me,
Okay.
and it hit me very, very, very strong, because I was putting all this on myself, and I had a clinic for special needs kids, and you were like, you got to close that clinic, and I was like, I can't. I owe it to the kids, and you said to me, out of compassion and love, and I will never forget. And I tell the story a lot, Chris, you're not that important. You're not that important. It will happen without you. I know it doesn't sound like a lot, but to me, you meant to say, you don't have to be all things to all people all the time. It's okay. It's okay to not be all things to all people. But you said to me, out of love and respect, we're in California, you said, Chris, you're not that important. And then you backed up with meaning there's care outside of you. You don't have to be everything to everybody. Take that pressure off yourself. And it changed. That was another huge pivot point in my life.
Well, I think I remember that conversation. I think I had to use strong language with you because I wasn't getting through.
Yeah, I softened it a little bit. Yeah.
But he's not getting it. Yeah, what am I going to say for him to get it? And it's funny.
Yeah.
I had dinner with a friend of mine last night. He's an orthopedic surgeon, and he like never takes vacations. And I'm like, do you realize another person could probably handle this rotator cuff tear?
Yeah.
You're like, your whole life is falling apart because you're thinking that everyone has to always have access to you. And I think it's important for people to understand when we talk about practice and balance. If you don't recharge, you basically burn out and not care and suck, and then become a bad practitioner. Like a lot of times we all hear the stories of someone going to see their doctor at a hospital or HMO, and they're so short with them, and they don't listen to them, they don't care, because they're in a bad spot. Like when people go and visit their doctor and they don't listen to them and they don't care and they dismiss everything and are grumpy, it's partly because it's not that they're probably bad human beings. It's at some point they've got into healthcare or medicine or whatever just to help people, but not having a break and not being able to recharge is going to have an impact on any human being. So like if you don't realize how important it is to take that time off, that makes a big difference. Even with you as successful as you are with as many things you're doing, you put yourself in an environment where you can take a 4-day break whenever you need to, and you're taking 6 to 8 trips a year, and you're looking at your staff to make sure that that's important. And I know for me, like I had to plan a day off a week where I didn't have any commitments to do anything. I call it a day off week. Like was for me usually a Monday. Like it didn't exist. My phone didn't turn on. I didn't talk to anyone. And I knew I always had that. So as tough as the week got, I go, I have this day. and that's yeah.
An interesting concept too. I've told my clinicians too, when they sit here, and I said, if I can't give 100% of myself to the patient sitting in front of me, and I used to tell patients, when you sit in front of me, there is nobody else in the world. You are the most important person in the room. I'm not more important. You're the most important person in the room. I said, now realize when the next person comes in, they're the most important person in the room, and I will give you undivided attention. I tell the clinicians I work with, if you can't give 100% of yourself to the patient because you're too stressed, you're too tired, you're thinking about other things, you're fighting with your wife, I said, then you need to pull back, because that's not fair to the patient. And it's not fair to you. It's not fair to you if you can't give 100% of yourself to the fact that you're changing lives. If a patient's sitting with you for an hour, you have 1 hour to change their lives. and to sit with them. It's so important. You can't miss something. You can't be distracted. And if that's because you're fatigued, you're burnt out, you're tired, if that's because whatever reasons, you need to fix that. You need to bring yourself whole to the patient because you owe it to the patient and you owe it to yourself. If you can't be true to yourself and you can't be true to the patient. So we start with the fundamental premise here like that. You have to be whole and take care of yourself. I tell every patient, you have to be the most important person in the room. And then I tell the clinician before that happens, you can't give out of scarcity. You have to give out of abundance. So you have to take care of yourself. You have to be good to yourself so you can give to your patients. And so often early on in my career, it's like, I'll just burn the candle at both ends. It doesn't matter. And you're doing 70% of the job. It just doesn't work. And it'll be okay. You're not that important. Somebody told me once.
That was done because someone was very stubborn.
Oh no, I had it coming. I had it.
Okay, it's another thing that I think would really be important for people here. I mean, obviously, when you see how you set yourself up and the structure you set up, the reason why you're successful, knowing how important it is for doctors and practitioners to have balance and be full and be able to take care of them, and how you look at your staff and not trying to burn them out, making sure everything is a healthy environment for everyone and so forth. It's so important for all of us to hear. How do you find an associate? I think that's another skill. If you're at the level of success you have, you must have an exceptional skill to know. Let's talk about an associate first. Someone first coming out of school, right? So whether the person listening to this is they just graduated and trying to find someone to work with, or someone is expanding their practice and want to bring someone on that's a new graduate. Let's talk with the new graduate first. What determines your thought process and criteria for allowing him to join your practice?
First and foremost is, are you humble? Are you humble enough to learn from me? Are you humble enough to learn from your patients? Are you humble enough to admit when you're wrong? Are you humble? Do you have that learning skill? Can you get better than you were yesterday? Can you take direction? I want people that are really smart. It's tough to be really smart and really good and be really humble, right? So there's qualities that, you've been around all these people and a lot of people that when they're super smart, they think they have it all figured out. And they don't have that learning piece to them. So that's the first piece. Then they'll shadow me for a while and I see if they can do it and kind of see if this is a right fit. And a lot of them, it's not a right fit. This isn't the right fit for you. Third, from the other side is all of our clinicians are compensated incredibly fair. I mean, my accountant says to me, you're nuts, but I get paid the same rate that my clinicians get paid. Everybody's paid at the same rate. So I don't have some bonus structure that they don't get, even though I built the whole thing. So be fair. If you're going to be fair to an associate, then they're going to want to stick with you and learn, and they're in it for the long haul. I tell my associates, we're not dating, we're getting married. Like I'm not dating you for a week or two, we're getting married. I'm committed to them as long as they're committed to me. So if I find somebody that's willing to learn, is humble, and is smart and sharp, I'll commit to them. I'll mentor them. I'll give what I can of them, and then they'll soak it all up. And one of my newer associates, he's been here several years, super smart guy. He said, I want to be like you one day. I said, if you're like me one day, I have failed you. You need to stand on my shoulders and be better than me. The goal, if you're only as good as me, you suck. You need to be better than me. And I want to give you all the knowledge that I have. And the legacy is you're the next generation building on it. So I think finding an associate is being open enough to say, you're valuable to me. You mean something to me as an associate. What can you bring talent that I can mold and you can learn from me? And am I willing to let my associates become better than me? Am I willing to take direction from them at some time? When does the fledgling become the master? So, and I think those are key points for us in this office is, are you willing to be on the team? Are you willing to collaborate? Are you willing to learn? Are you willing to say, I don't know everything? And then are you willing to also bring new ideas to the table? Are you willing to learn and bring ideas to the table? We have clinicians now, they'll go to a seminar and they're required when they come back from the seminar, we pay for it, to give us a lecture on what they learned because we don't know what they learned. So we have two going to Ozone this weekend in Vegas. They're going to come back and they're going to teach us what they learned, whether we do it or not. So what can they bring to the table? And I think just being fair, it's that the same way you treat an associate is the same way you treat a patient, with compassion. And for an associate, have confidence, but go out and say, I know like I was when I went to Jeffrey Bland the first time. I didn't, when Mark Yurick said to me, learn or quit. So if an associate's willing to say, I need to learn, I need to continue to learn, I want to be mentored by somebody, I'm willing to not have the confidence and arrogance to think I have it all figured out and I can do it all on my own. And then for the other side is, can we offer that without preying on our young and feeding them?
Okay. That's really good advice. Now talk to me about how you're finding, so there's different types of practitioners and there's different backgrounds and social environments of different types of practitioners. So for example, someone in an alternative healthcare field like acupuncture or naturopath or an acupuncturist is going to have a different background walking into an alternative medicine clinic versus a conventionally trained physician, right? Conventional physician has gone through residency. They have a totally different social environment. For them to come into functional medicine, it's really it's a big leap for many of them.
Right.
So you have several medical physicians in your office that come from that background. And how did you find and work with them and help create the healthy relationship that's been successful for your practice?
So I'll pick on Dr. West, Cindy West. She's our nephrologist. She worked at UPMC, big hospital, as in the nephrology department for 30, 40 years. And she saw that in her words, so nephrology manages end-stage pathology. That's what they do, end-stage kidney failure. And she said, I'm tired of managing death. It's time for me to manage health. I got into this to manage health. And she was open-minded enough to know that there was more out there. So I think a lot of two sides of this coin, new physicians, MDs that are coming out are more open to it. And a lot of the other classically trained physicians, they're getting burnt out too, because they know they're not getting where they want to be with what they're doing. So it's a great time because it's becoming more and more accepted as far as more and more open. You mentioned the Cleveland Clinic. By opening it and breaking through barriers, more and more people want to learn this kind of stuff. We have a little hospital down the street from us that we challenge all the time. It's called Johns Hopkins. So we always have a little bit of an issue with them. They're right down the street. The validity that we carry when we bring a physician in that wants to join our practices, we're using labs that they're using. So we're not doing just esoteric labs. We're also doing regular labs. So we might look at a CBC and a CMP or something, through, even if it's something like a GAD65 or an ANA or something like that, we're doing it through LabCorp. They're the same labs that they use. So we're not just using esoteric labs. That gives them a little bit of comfort because they're familiar with that. So to bring in and bring in like a classically medically trained allopath, we're going to speak their language. I think it's so important that we don't just say it's functional medicine versus allopathic medicine. I just say it's healthcare. It's just better healthcare. And so let's talk about our commonalities as opposed to our differences. Let's talk about what you're doing, and let's talk about expanding what you already know and bringing your knowledge to the table and just building on it. So we're not asking them to throw away what they know. We're asking them to utilize everything they know. Dr. West, my nephrologist, if I see a complicated kidney case, I walk it down the hallway. I'm not stupid enough to think I can replace 40 years of UPMC top-notch nephrology because I've been doing this for a while. So I'm humble enough to walk down, but I'm running the labs that she's used to seeing. It's that common ground. And that's been a huge plus for the traditionally allopathically trained physician. Now, another attractive piece is if we're bringing a naturopath or an acupuncturist or a chiropractor who wants to do functional medicine, they need to know that they don't have it all figured out either, and they can lean on the allopathically trained physician because there's things that they haven't seen. We brought on a family nurse practitioner. She's 17 years family nurse practitioner. She really loved seeing skin lesions. If I see a skin lesion, I've seen it in a book or on Google. She's seen it in person. I walked down the hallway. What the hell is this? She's like, oh, that's this, and the other. So to be able to have that is attractive to the non-allopathic people that want to join our practice too. So just being humble enough to say, I don't have it all figured out, or I'm going to find common ground so that we can bring you in is helpful.
Yeah, and when I hear you speak with this multidisciplinary approach, the key thing that I hear is everyone is valued, and everyone should be valued. They all have different backgrounds. They all have different skills. They all have different ways of looking at it. And the key thing I think you also point out is it's healthcare.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what you want to call it. I mean,
right.
A red blood cell is a red blood cell. A lung sound is a lung sound. Exam finding is exam finding. It's what are you going to do with it? What's your application? And the other key thing I always remembered to myself, and I used to teach, is make sure you don't do a bonehead move. Make sure there's no reason for them to be somewhere else. Make sure there's no reason there's a red flag. Do your proper normal evaluation. Make sure they're a candidate to then jump into diet and lifestyle, and then what kind of applications you can, and what are the people you can bring on your team. You're in a very unique position because you kind of have the people on your team in one roof. For a lot of us, and like myself, I have trusted people that I have to refer back to, or have them make sure they go and contact someone else if they see something. And that's important for people to know too, is like, you don't have to have all the answers, right?
Well, no, you taught me that a long time ago, and it resonated. And it's what I teach. It's what I teach to my clinicians here. It's what I taught when I was lecturing all over, is don't make that bonehead move. Don't miss something obvious. Don't look so far in front of your face that you missed something, right in front of you. Don't miss the big deal. You're discredit yourself. It's a disservice to the patient. And before I had clinicians, there's a local hematologist oncologist who I reached out to humbly. And I said, listen, I'm going to see stuff. I don't know what it is. Are you willing to see these patients? He said, absolutely. So I worked with him. I'm like, I don't even know if this is valued, but I don't know what to make of this. I'm not sure what to do with this. I remember a case, a patient brought me, it was actually I see the wife, the husband came in and his alk phos was elevated on a routine scan for life insurance. And he said, what do you think? I said, your alk phos is high. There's no reason for your alk phos is high. I sent him over to the hematologist oncologist. He had kidney cancer. They caught it early. I don't know if that was the right move or not. I was not afraid to say, I need to co-manage this with someone else and find those trusted professionals in the area. I mean, in my Rolodex, I have neurosurgeons, orthopedic surgeons, oncologists, hematologists that aren't in my office, and we still rely heavily on them to say, hey, this is outside my field. Or I'll look at a lab and I'm like, yeah, I'm pretty confident and I'm pretty comfortable at seeing a lot of things, and I can tell you there's a fair amount of times I'm like, yeah, this is out of my wheelhouse. This is out of my wheelhouse. I got to find somebody else to send this to.
Yeah, you bring up a really important point, Chris, which is, in order to have a successful practice, you need to know and have a team of people and feel comfortable reaching out to other practitioners. And you do it in a very good way because you're very humble and you're not threatening. But some people are really nervous. What kind of advice would you give to someone? Like, there's some people that do functional medicine, they jump into it and they, let's say, wouldn't feel comfortable calling and talking to someone they may need, whether, let's say, it's a nephrologist or maybe it's a cardiologist, or what kind of advice would you give a practitioner in that scenario?
It goes back to the very first thing we were talking about is are you able to get out of your comfort zone? So can you get out of your comfort zone and pick up the phone and call urology, nephrology and say, I don't know what this means. And quite often, you might get an arrogant allopathic physician who's like, oh, what are you doing? You shouldn't be running this test. But more often than not, you remember, you're talking to an expert who loves to be the expert. So if you're like, hey, I'm going to call the kidney doctor because there's a kidney problem, guess what they like to talk about? Kidney problems. So you're talking about things they like. So it's okay. Get over that. Once you do it a couple times, it's not that bad. I'm still learning that. My nurse practitioner, I was telling you, of 17 years, she picks up the phone, calls the hospital. She picks up the phone and calls. And I learned that over the past 3 years, that I probably needed to do that more early to grow quicker and more effectively. Pick up the phone, call the person. Most of the times they'll have a relationship with you. You'll develop a relationship. They'll see that you don't have it all figured out. You're not trying to take on more than you can, and they're willing to work with you. I've actually done it remarkably with Johns Hopkins. So pick up the phone. I'm like, hey, this is what I'm seeing. When you hear somebody from Johns Hopkins say, hey, what do you think? Because we don't know either. That's a big deal. Like that tells you you've kind of developed a relationship with people. And I think, just like you said, pick up the phone. You have to get out of your comfort zone. To be successful, get out of your comfort zone, pick up the phone, talk to the clinician. You'll quickly realize who wants to work with you and who doesn't. And those that do want to work with you, you develop a fabulous relationship that'll benefit the patient, that'll benefit your practice.
Yeah, it's a good point. And once you make that connection with another trained professional, you have that person for ongoing basis, and sometimes there'll be referrals back to you, and it's very productive. But you will, like you put a good point, you will occasionally get an arrogant person is just upset and saying you shouldn't be, what are you doing functional medicine or whatever, or this isn't your specialty. And that's going to happen, but that's not going to be everyone. It's actually quite rare, but it does happen, but it's not the most typical thing that happens, right?
Right. And then what happens, that's somebody that, again, they're not going to get out of that comfort zone. They're not going to learn. They're no good to you. They're no good to the patient.
Exactly. Now, I just want to finish up the time I have with you, is asking you, like, we're unrelated business and practice. You've seen functional medicine in the very beginning, and you've seen functional medicine kind of evolve. And there's a point where functional medicine was all about just to put everyone on the 4R program, repair, reinoculate, replace. Is very simple, and things have evolved since then. And there's even a time where even looking at standard blood chemistry wasn't done in functional medicine. And functional medicine has you hear things like start with the gut if you don't know what to do, and you're like, okay, that's kind of general. Or it's become very protocol based, and in a way of trying to make functional medicine like interpretable for the general population. We see a lot of educational programs use the word protocol, and it's like, that's a different type. That really means you're not doing individualized care. So what have you seen yourself in this 25 years you've been in this functional medicine field, of how education is being taught and how people are practicing to where things are now?
So, early on, you're right, it was 4R, and that still exists. 4R, 5R, there's probably 6R, 7R now. I don't know.
Yeah, neither.
It's more R's. The only complications, we added an R. So I'm like, well, it's more than that. So it's becoming as well. I think where it's going is becoming more well-rounded, as opposed to being a specialist in a certain thing, right? And so all of it plays a role. All of these are pieces to the healthcare. And I've seen, there's rabbit holes, right? So I'm part of ILADS, which is the Lyme people, and they go so far down into the infection. So I say there's the Horowitzes of the world, and he's a Lyme doctor, and there's the Richie Shoemakers of the world, and they're all mold. We focus a lot on diet and inflammatory antigens. I think the key, though, is I've seen it drift in directions where it's the 4R, start with the gut, and then do this. It comes down, it's coming full cycle back in my world. And my world is just my world, because I dealt with a lot of infectious disease and pathogens, and we have Lyme disease here, and mold is rampant, and leaky gut and pro-inflammatory. It's coming back to, if I told someone where to start, actually, I have these tearaway papers, I show these pictures of the immune system, and I have a whole stack of them on my desk. I hand them out to every patient. It's a tearaway sheet. Heather made it for me. Can we start with regulating the immune system and improving tolerance to the world we live in, right? I'm sure you've heard that before. If we can regulate the inflammatory cascades in the body, if we can figure out what is driving your body to be out of kilter, out of whack, can we help to regulate your immune system? And then can we improve the tolerance you have to the bugs, the mold, the stress, the sleep? Can we improve tolerance, and can we regulate your immune system? It's a great starting point, because it's hard for that to be wrong. If you say, I think you have Lyme and I'm going to put you on IV antibiotics for 2 years, you might be wrong with some detriment. If you said, I'm going to optimize your vitamin D and your thyroid, and if I'm going to optimize your diet and health and support good sleep, you're not going to be wrong. So that's where I see it coming back to. And I see a lot of people go on tangents in these rabbit holes, and they fail to miss, or they fail to see the basics. And so I see functional medicine kind of coming back to, hey, we have a lot of rabbit holes, but until we fix our bases, that's not going to fix anything. And so, it's a little bit, it's kind of like the 4R on steroids, right? So it's improved tolerance. And I have something I'll share with you. I'm going to write a book maybe one day. It's called The Hand of Health, right? It's very simple. How and when you eat, how and when you sleep, and how and when you move. If you focus on those things, how and when you eat, how and when you sleep, and how and when you move. And they're different for everybody, but how and when you eat is all the craze of intermittent fasting, types of diets you do. How and when you sleep, are you getting enough sleep? You're sleeping the right time, sleeping through the night, is your circadian rhythm good? And then how and when you move includes the type of exercise you're getting, but are you still, are you silent, are you reflective, are you listening to your body, all those things, right? Those are super important to me. And if you figure those basics out, now that's a core before you get to Lyme disease, before you get to infections, before you get to all these crazy things, these dysregulations in the immune systems and crazy antibodies that you have towards different tissues, those still have to be fixed. No matter what your problem is, those three need to be taken care of. Then this one is supplementation. So that supplements the first three. And then the thumb is way over here because there's probably a time for medication, but it's not the first three. And so you have the hand, how and when you eat, how and when you sleep, how and when you move, what you're doing to support and supplement that. And then the thumb is medication. But the piece that a lot of people miss is it's a hand that reaches out to their fellow man. It's a hand that reaches out to say, I need help. It's the hand that reaches out and says, I can help you. It's the hand that reaches out and says, I'm part of a community. If we just focused on that, I think that's where functional medicine got its foundation. And I don't think we want to lose that. Like if we just evaluate those basic building blocks, that's huge. So it may be my limited little paradigm that I'm living in, but I've gone from, I don't know what the hell I'm doing at all, seeing Jeffrey Bland for the first time, not knowing what a mitochondria really did or how it worked, to then going down these deep rabbit holes and going all these fancy protocols for all these crazy conditions and this craziness and down deep in a hole to China for mold and Lyme and parasites, and then coming back out and saying, wait a minute, guys. Let's just go back to immune regulation, tolerate the world you're living in, tolerate the fact that you need to get good, healthy nutrition, good, healthy sleep, good, healthy movements, and be reflective and not overdo it. And that's what I've kind of come back to. I don't know if that's where functional medicine is going, but that's where my life is taken.
Of course, that's great. And I think another key point to point out is, I would say a large part of your success is also your ability to clearly educate your patients. And just, I see a diagram to your right, which I'm sure is used for patient education.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
And I see those handouts you're printing out, which is used for patient education. So there's like a really conscious effort to make sure you get your message clear to the patient. And I think that's incredibly important. And that's a key feature of very successful practices is they're not trying to overwhelm the patient. They want the patient to understand, and they have the ability to communicate their needs that they may not even know they have, that they need to take care of very clearly. So
I think a lot of times, well, let me throw this in. I'm sorry to interrupt you there, but a lot of times I see the younger clinicians or the newer clinicians, or I'll say the less confident clinicians, they try to impress the patient by showing them how smart they are, right? Telling them like, I have this figured out. And then the expectations from the patient go way up too, because like this guy's the smartest guy on the planet and he must figure this out. And so I think that's a mistake. I think it's a mistake to try and overwhelm the patient with telling them how smart we are, or overcoming our insecurities by sounding smarter than we are, and just saying, listen, walk with them, bring it to their level, meet them where they live. I think that's a huge piece. I try to do that. Like now, if they escalate, I'll try and escalate with them. Like I've been doing this for more than a day. So
you're not a chump.
Yeah, I'm not a chump, but I'm not that important either. So, but that
scarred you, I think.
Yeah, it did, but in a good way. That scarred. I have a scar on my wrist from when I broke my wrist, but it's a good thing. So, but being able to not forcing, I don't have to tell you how smart I am. Like that's a big thing, and we do that so often. It's an insecurity.
Yes.
Listen, let me tell you how smart I am, and tell the patient, listen, let me tell you how brilliant I am. Listen, they're in your office for a reason. You don't have to prove it to them. They're sitting there because they're saying, I don't need to know how smart you are. I just need to get better. And we do that a lot as we try to overcompensate by telling people how smart we are.
I think you're right. I think I went through that early on as a young practitioner, and also from my own practice into even lecturing. And now it's like, I don't know anything. And let me just, ultimately, what the message I'm getting from you is what I've seen also some things for myself is just be humble, just be kind, try to explain it to the best you can, serve the patient, and that takes time because, honestly, when we all get into the field and we're new, there's a lot of insecurities because it's complicated and stuff, and you have to not let that stuff get in the way and taking a look back. Now, last thing I would like to have you help me with is basically if we divide people in our Corazon community, we have one group of people that are new to functional medicine, new to changing their practice, or maybe just out of school. And I want you to help with some advice with that. And then secondly, we have a group of people that are very skilled, been in practice for a very long time, and they're the ones that are just trying to get that extra piece of nugget each little month to increase their skills, but they're already, a very good clinician and really have this down. So starting with the people that are new and trying to get into it, what their practice in their life and their learning, what's the advice you'd give them?
Well, so a couple things. I would give a couple pieces of advice. One would be, don't be afraid to do it. Don't be afraid to get your hands dirty. I mean, just you have to start getting your hands dirty. Start running some labs. Start asking patients. Start palpating thyroids. Just get out and get yourself into it. You're not gonna be ready. It's like, when are you ready to have a kid? Never. So you got to jump in. And two, I would encourage everybody, find a mentor you can pick up the phone and talk to. Don't be an island. I mean, being an island is really difficult. It breeds hardness and insecurities and forcing to tell everybody you know what you're talking about. Don't be an island. Just be part of a community. Find anybody you're willing to talk to. And your mentor doesn't have to have it all figured out, but somebody's willing to say, I went through that and I had no idea what I was talking about. And also, I have seen that before. And the only reason I know that is because 13 years ago, I had a case, and it's a weird one-off thing that happened in my practice. My new doc, she came in and she goes, what's going on? I'm like, that's copper. She goes, how do you know that? I said, only reason I know that is because 13 years ago, I saw that. Now, you can't have a 13-year history if you've only been doing it for 3 years. So you got to realize there's some wisdom that comes with just time in the trenches. But don't be afraid to get into it. So jump in, get your hands dirty, continually educate yourself, and find someone that you can talk to or a group that you can talk to. A lot of areas have groups, but let your guard down. Let yourself be known that you don't have it all figured out. Find mentors that can help you, and don't be afraid to get your hands dirty. So that's to the newbies.
Okay, what about the advanced practitioners?
The advanced is I would hope that the advanced would be some of the people that we talk to that are very skilled. I think a big thing I say, because I see, don't have a confirmation bias. That's a big one. We go in because we know it all. We know the case. I know what's going on before the case ever presented itself. And like, no, you don't. You really don't. And go in with that I don't know what this is attitude. Don't have the confirmation bias. Work them up from the ground floor. So you might go from ground floor to floor 115 really quickly because you're very skilled and you've been doing it for 20 years and this isn't your first day. Don't skip steps. Make sure you go through all the processes. And then, so if you don't have a confirmation bias, you're going to keep the open mind. So you're going to see that one off. And that's going to be a teachable moment. That's going to be a learning moment when you say, I look at this with a new set of eyes every time so that I don't miss things. That's what's going to help sharpen this off. At least that's what's helping me. If I go in and say, I don't know what this means. I've never really seen that before. Well, nobody wants to say after 26 years and being at the top of your game and you think you're one of the leaders of the field, I've never seen that before. So being open and be willing to go to, for example, to one of your lectures and realize that maybe 90% of it you've heard before, but maybe 10% you didn't. And realizing that, instead of drifting off and thinking you have it all and figured out and spending all the time at the bar, realize that it might take you that when you're that good and you've been doing it that long, it's that much harder to get a nugget. So you got to dig a little bit deeper, right? So that gold mine has been mined for a while. It's a little bit harder to find a gold nugget, but stick with it because those are the ones that make you the excellent clinician, that keep you the top 1/10 of 1% of clinicians. So be willing to do that as well. Don't have a confirmation bias. And be willing to put a lot more work into getting that little nugget.
Awesome. Chris, thank you so much for your time. And I'm sure everyone really appreciate all your advice. And congratulations on your success. I mean, it's so awesome to see what you're doing over the years. And thank you again.
Thanks so much, Aziz. Appreciate it. My pleasure.